Good morning, everybody. It's Jason Blaha here. Yes, it's very early where I'm at. I'm barely awake, but I had a subscriber kind of ask a question, which I'll flip in here, and he wants to know how do deloads actually induce growth. He can see why they're good for recovery, but how do they actually make you bigger or stronger? And I think that's a fantastic question, one that doesn't get brought up enough. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing. Let's do a little bit of crafting here this morning, see if I can skill up. And let's talk about this for a bit. All right. As far as it inducing growth, all right, the thing is, deloads don't automatically ensure muscle growth. They do not induce muscle growth on their own in isolation outside of the context of your larger training. Now, they are always beneficial for recovery. They are always beneficial for helping with little nagging injuries and inflammation that comes up. And that's a point that can't be underscored enough. And that's the one thing you've got to look at, that deload should be used anytime you're starting to feel joint pain or connective tissue pain in your training. That is a sign that you 100% chance need to take a deload, no matter what else is going on in your training. Even if that pain is being caused by bad technique, by a muscle imbalance, anything else, once those nagging pains start, deloads will at least help stave off any injuries that are coming. Meaning, if you're doing something that's going to hurt you in the gym, by taking a deload immediately when you start to feel pain, you can cut the chance that you're going to get hurt. You're not going to get hurt during the deload week if you do it correctly, even if you've been training incorrectly up till then. And what it does, it gives that connective tissue and things time to heal a little bit, takes the load off of them, and maybe gives you a chance to assess what's going on there, so you can figure out what's causing the pain. Are you just overreaching? And if you're overreaching, the deload is going to help you grow, which we'll come to in a minute. But if you haven't been overreaching, and that's not what's causing it, like overuse of that connective tissue or joints, it can maybe give you time to step back, continue to train, maintain your gains, maintain your motor unit patterns for your exercises while you figure out what in the hell is going on, so that you can hopefully address it. Maybe gives you time to look at your different strength on different exercises and see if you've got a muscle imbalance causing it. Maybe, push versus pull imbalance. As far as your strength, you can pin it down, research it. Gives you a chance to look and see if maybe your technique is a problem, review some of your old videos of your exercises and see if you can find some major form breakdowns, figure out what's going on. So it's good for injury prevention as a tool that lets you hold on to where you're at with your gains to give you time to figure out what's going on and do a little bit of healing in the meantime. Again, same thing if you need extra recovery, you're just tired, you're fatigued, you have a lot of maybe negative things going on in your life or stressful things going on in your life. And people need to realize that life changes, even positive ones, are stressful. As crazy as that sounds, you could get a big raise at work, literally a 20% raise at your job, and that's going to elevate your stress hormones even if nothing else changes at your job. And that sounds crazy, but stressors, even positive ones. You just met a new girl who you fell in love with, and she falls in love back with you, or guy, or whatever it happens to be for you. And that's going to elevate your stress hormones. Change is stressful. Change in general can affect your training. You might need some extra recovery. You start feeling fatigued in your training. Deload will help you recover from that. So the recovery aspect can't be underscored enough, even if you're not needing it due to training overreaching per se. Now, when it comes to the overreaching aspect, what people need to understand, deloads help you gain extra muscle and strength in an overreaching environment. And that's what people need to look at. Generally, when we talk about just certain types of training, like single factor recovery training, you train hard, your body super compensates to that training, and you adapt and grow, and it goes session to session. It isn't a cumulative thing, meaning the progressive overload is cumulative over time, but you're only mildly pushing yourself forward. When you're doing that, you may not really need regular deloads. You might not need to deload at all if you're never pushing yourself beyond your limits, meaning you're pushing yourself to the edge of recovery in one workout, and then you give yourself time to recover because you're stimulating growth, meaning you're adding weight here and there, you're adding reps here and there, but you're never pushing anything to the limits. You'll always grow doing that. You don't have to go to the limits to grow. You just have to push slightly beyond your comfort zone. You will grow from that indefinitely. People who are seeking maximum gains, again, in a competitive environment, because outside of a competitive environment, seeking maximum gains is kind of silly. Doing it purely for ego, the risk that you undertake to injury, everything else, trying to get a 1% advantage, to put yourself through serious training to seek maximum gains to where you're dedicating your life to your training, if you don't compete in anything, is probably a bit silly. I'm just putting it out there. But people who are competitive in something are seeking maximum gains. That 1% difference will never be noticeable in the mirror. It will never be noticeable in a gym environment, but it will be noticeable in a competitive environment against other people. That's where overreaching and underreaching models matter. Dual factor recovery. The way that works, by taking phases to where you ramp up workloads, intensity, volume, whatever, over a period of time. Like you start in a zone that you would normally just grow from normally, and over the course of training, you push yourself progressively to the edge of your recovery. And then towards the end of any phase, whether you're doing it in a 3-week or 4-week period or a 12-week periodization block, you push yourself for at least 1 week in a shorter blocks, or even up to 3 weeks, where you push yourself to the point to where your body cannot recover. That's not something you would normally do outside of a competitive environment, because it's going to negatively affect other aspects of your life. It could affect your relationships due to you being irritable. It could affect your job. It could affect your education if you're in college. So you wouldn't want to push yourself beyond your recovery limits. That's useful for people in a competitive environment. But when you do so, if you continue to do so, you will lose size and strength eventually. All right, you will overtrain because you don't super compensate from that workout to workout. But by overreaching, you push yourself beyond what your body can recover from. Meaning, even if you went back to normal training from doing that, you wouldn't recover in the next week. You would be backpedaling even your normal recoverable volume, because you've now created what you would call like a recovery debt that your body has to repay. So you can't go back to the style of training that you would normally recover from session to session and go back in and progress the older style of training. You can't do that because you've created like a recovery debt, and your body has to pay that debt off. You've borrowed against future recovery time by pushing yourself beyond that limit. And if you don't do so, you're going to stall and you're going to regress. The deload is a recovery week. If you deload with correct timing, you push yourself beyond your recoverable workload and fatigue for at least a week. But you've also added training stimulus that your body has never experienced before. That final week of anything like that, or even the final 3 weeks sometimes, your body has been stimulated, been giving training stimulus beyond anything it has experience with. And if you do that, that is stimulating new growth. The problem is, until you recover from it, you're not going to get the adaptations from it. But if you do that correctly, you stimulated new growth. You've subjected your body to something new that it has never experienced before, but you've done so progressively over the weeks. The deload week is there to catch up on that recovery debt that you've incurred. And when that happens, that deload week allows your body to recover from that overreaching and adapt and grow from it. Because what you're doing by the deloading, you're re-stimulating muscle protein synthesis. Because you need to remember, without drugs in your system, you do not grow beyond 48 hours after a training session. So if you just took a week off, your body wouldn't really grow so much from that recovery. It would need future time to adapt to it. So a week off is actually going to give you, you're going to lose a week worth of progress. But by coming in and deloading, using much lighter weights and workloads than you normally ever would, normally not enough to stimulate growth, you are re-sparking muscle protein synthesis, blood flow, everything else back to those muscles that had been pushed beyond the recovery limits. And when you do that, again, you can reignite the muscle protein synthesis through that training that was originally stimulated through that other training, the harder training that you couldn't recover from. And when you do that, you allow your body to make the additional gains off of that previous overreaching. Even though you're underreaching now because you're just catching up on your recovery debt. You've already stimulated more than your body can adapt to or grow from in a week. You've already outstretched that. So it plays catch up on the deload week. And every time you come through and train the muscles again with a lighter weight, you're reinforcing that previous overreaching training. And when you do so, you will actually grow significantly after every workout on the deload week. You will get bigger, you will get stronger, you will adapt to the previous overreaching, and it will actually become beneficial to you at that point. And that's how it works. That is how deloading induces additional gains, additional size, additional strength, everything else. It does so based upon the previous overreaching training in the week before the deload. And when done correctly, it is one of the most effective tools a competitor in a competitive environment can utilize during their off season. It works fantastically well, but if you do it wrong, you overtrain. If you don't overreach enough to need the deload, you don't really grow much, if at all, during the deload week. So then you basically lose kind of like a week's worth of progress, but at least you recover. So it is a bit more complicated and a bit more tricky to use this model, but for people who compete in something, the 1% edge over traditional style of training can actually be noticeable. It could make or break you in a competitive environment. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.